Alright, so Captain America has been out for about 2 days now, and it was a great freaking movie. Just going straight from the beginning. I love the fact that they had Scarlet Witch be the one to set things off. I was glad the fact that they even had an actual moment to set off all the Civil War stuff, because I just assumed, here comes Thunderbolt Ross, and it's like, you guys suck. Look what you did in New York. Look what you did in Sokovia. Yeah, Sokovia. I was going to say Slovakia, but that's a real place. Um, and I thought it was cool. I was like, okay, there's an actual event on Cap's side that kind of sets this off immediately. Like, this truly is the final straw that sets off the Accords and everything. And then we had a great introduction for Tony as well, where he meets the father, or he meets the mother of the young man who died in the Avengers and everything that happened there. And I love the fact that they had great moments for both those characters and introductions to the innocence lost sort of aspect of the film. I thought that was a great way to do it. Great opening action sequence for Cap's side of things, which was really cool. Um, it was fun. They had Crossbones from the last movie, which is cool. I was very surprised that they killed him off so early. I thought he'd play a bit of a bigger role, to be totally honest. So I was surprised he died off so early. And then on Tony's side of things, they have the CG really young Robert Downey Jr., which when I saw him, seriously, I was like, man, this is Weird Science right now. Like it when I see him like that, I thought of Weird Science, the movie, which is a great movie if you haven't seen it. But it was making me laugh. I was like, he looks exactly like he did in Weird Science, and it was just really funny to me. But just the way they did that, I thought was really good. And it was kind of interesting because with Cap and his team, it was like they had that final moment, and a bunch of innocent people died. And then with Tony, he got like sort of the retroactive death type of thing. But he also had a lot of stuff going on during that scene, and it was kind of interesting watching that because he was going over, with the hologram and stuff like that. And he says, like, I wish I got to say this stuff. Like, I wish I got to say, I love you, Dad, and I know you guys really tried. But he was reliving, like, probably the worst moment in his life. And then after that, they have the Pepper Potts thing where it's like, oh, she doesn't show up because they're broken up now. And then it goes into, oh, you got my son killed, great. So it was interesting with Tony's thing where it was like, he got hit with like three things. They were obviously all three very different things. But he got hit like three things in a row, and I'm like, I feel like his side was worse, despite what happened, with Cap and his team and how obviously a ton of innocent people died. Occupational hazard, I guess, in a sense, and that was probably, oddly enough, that was probably the biggest mistake they've actually had, more than anything we've actually seen. You know, this stuff with the first Avengers movie was like, it's pure chaos. They have to fight back. Avengers, same thing. Avengers 2, when they showed that footage, I was like, yeah, that's totally their fault. Like, New York was Loki, but yeah, Avengers 2, I was like, yeah, that's exactly their fault. That's literally 100% on the Avengers that happened. Specifically, of course, it's on Tony more than anybody else. But it was funny when they did the first Avengers clip, which is really good, too, because normally in movies it's always like, oh, look at this footage, and it's literally just a clip from the movie. And they showed that in the trailer. It was like, it was just a clip from the first Avengers movie, and I was like, that sucks. Because everybody always does that, where it's like, look at this footage we found of like off a phone or something, but it's like, oh, you found that footage of a close-up on someone's phone or something. They always do that in TV and movies. And in the actual film, I was really happy that they changed it. I was so happy that they did, and it's like, thank you. Then just thank you for authenticity, because otherwise, even though everyone does it, it doesn't change the fact that it sucks when people do that. Like, everybody does it, and it's dumb every time I see it. Like, they couldn't just, like, they write scripts out before they film anything, and it's like, they didn't think to just take like an extra minute to just film something in a different angle or something like that and say, like, this is found footage. And so I was happy that they did that for the movie. Um, and then, but yeah, it was really cool. I enjoyed that scene, and having the clip show up and like kind of affecting everyone, and them going through all these issues. And then once the split happens, that's when we get to see, Black Panther come in and his father, and they kill his father off, which I was surprised. I was curious if they would do that early on, because I forgot about the fact that only the king technically can be the Black Panther, which I feel like, with it being the cinematic universe, obviously a million different things are changed from this version of Civil War compared to the comics. For one, it's like a million less characters involved. But that was something I felt, if they wanted to, they could have made that a simple little change and saved his father's death for the movie, maybe. But I was surprised, and I'm assuming I know what the story's going to be, just because I know at least one of the really big aspects of his character is being king, and some stuff that comes with that, which I won't even get into here. But obviously for people that know the story, it's like there's, at least for his first movie, I can kind of see what they might go with for a specific character and what struggle a king could have based on certain rules that they have, in their country. So his introduction I thought was really cool, and they have a sad moment, with him and his father. But he instantly goes like, "All right, Bucky Barnes killed my dad. I'm gonna kill him. That's all there is to it." Instantly, he shows up with that suit, and I was like, "Dang, that was way faster than I thought." I knew obviously he's Black Panther. I just didn't think he'd be in it as much as he was. I'm happy that he was in it so much. I was just insanely surprised. Like, they have Cap meet with Bucky. It's like, I found you. This has happened. It's like, I didn't kill that guy. And then they get breached, and they have the cool fight scene that made me think of Daredevil because of the spiral staircase. And then here comes Black Panther. Super early on, I was like, alright, that's really cool. Super awesome. And now they're fighting. And then they're all running down the road at super speed and stuff like that. That was a fun scene as well. And like the scene where Bucky like pushes the dude off the motorcycle and he grabs it with his metal arm and just flips it around and takes off. That was a cool shot too. And they're jumping over cars and stuff like that. It was just a fun freaking scene. And I can't remember how it happened, but when the car was flipping and Captain America, like, he just opened the door and just got out and was just running as the car's flipping behind him. I was like, that was a cool shot as well. But chaos ensues. We keep going on, and we have our stuff with Scarlet Witch, which I thought was very well done in the movie, and just how they did her story in like little snippets. Her story, I feel like, was like Hawkeye's in Avengers 2, just a lot more serious and kind of devastating for her character. But I like the way they did it. It was in little snippets, and she's devastated in the beginning. She gets the pep talk from Cap. And then she's kind of picked herself up. It's like, it sucks that it happened, but, he kind of tells her, like, it was an accident. It was, like, truly a mistake. And so she's kind of picking herself up and it's like, all right, simple little thing, too. Like, I'm going to get some stuff so we can cook. And Vision won't let her leave because Tony was like, don't let her go because things might get crazy. And then it just breaks down from there. And I thought it was good. I liked the way they did her story. I thought that was pretty nice. And we have Hawkeye show up and he's there. He was kind of there really because of her. He was there to help her out and because he kind of convinced her to be an Avenger. And she's having a crappy moment as an Avenger. So it's like, I kind of owe her one. He even says, it's like, I owed a debt. I think he says, a debt specifically. But that was pretty cool. It's a nice way to kind of get him in there and it makes perfect sense. And of course we have Spider-Man coming in. We have Ant-Man coming in. Really happy that they got a lot of attention during the fights because they come in and it's just like, boom, we got Ant-Man, boom, we got Spider-Man. And it was simple. It was like, they're both in the movie. Both their introductions are really funny. Honestly, I think I like Ant-Man's introduction more than Spider-Man's, but I like Spider-Man during the fight more than I like Ant-Man because, not only because it's Spider-Man, Spider-Man's like my favorite, but just he had more comedy than Ant-Man did, but Ant-Man had some great moments too, like when he threw the truck and he thought it was like, oh, I thought it was a water truck. It was like, my bad. And then him going Giant Man, which was a great scene. Like that was epic in two ways because it was super epic because like as soon as he was talking, I'm like, what is he talking about? He's like, if I rip myself in half and stuff, I'm like, what is he saying? And then he was like, once he was like, I tried it in a lab once, I was like, he's about to do Giant Man, and that was such a cool scene. He grows and he grabs Rhodey and stuff in midair, and Spider-Man's like, holy shit, which was probably the funniest scene in the entire fight. It was just great. Like, that whole thing, I was like, holy crap. That just shifted the whole dynamic, and it's just like, both sides are just like, alright, that, I don't even know. Everybody was just like, huh, that it happened, so let's see what goes on with this now. But that was really great. And I mentioned my spoiler-free review. I wish they had Vision in there more, because he was still not there. It was just like Avengers 2, where it's like, where is he at? How is he not doing more in this fight? Because it's Vision. And it's even harder to ignore in this because they were all literally in one area. It wasn't like, oh, there are a bunch of Ultron bots all over the place. It was literally just these characters at this airport, and that's it. And he just wasn't there for most of that fight. And I mentioned this in my spoiler-free review. if they just gave him like one line where he's like, I'm not gonna fight because he's insanely powerful, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. I'm not gonna fight until I feel it's absolutely necessary. It would have made perfect sense for him to do nothing until, Scott went Giant Man, because it's like, holy crap, he's Giant Man, and he was, lifting up planes and crap, and like after that it was like a bunch of explosions and stuff. So that would have made sense if he didn't fight until that point. I would have been like, all right, that makes perfect sense. But seriously, when he like does the cannonball thing, and when he does the laser thing, when he makes like literally the dividing line, and the very end when he's distracted, because Scarlet Witch is like knocked out. Those are the only three things I remember him doing. I think he was in the background at one point floating, and that was it. And I'm like, the main reason it bothered me too is because they showed Scarlet Witch, and it's like, obviously she's the only one that can truly take him on. And she showed up in two little scenes where she was saving people, and like she throws Black Panther, and I think it was Scarlet Witch, or she threw Black Widow as well. So I'm like, all right. So when they first did that, I'm like, okay, Vision didn't stop her that time. She shows up and she like throws Black Panther. I'm like, okay, Vision's definitely coming in this time to stop her from stopping everybody else, maybe. But nothing, still nothing. And it's like one line. That's all it would have taken. Is like him saying, "I will not fight unless I feel it's truly necessary, or there's gonna be too much chaos." Because that was the big thing. Like it just ultimately leads to catastrophe. So if he said that before the fight and then didn't get involved until Scott went Giant Man, I'd be like, okay, it kind of sucks we don't get to see Vision fight as much, but it makes sense because he's the calculating computer. And they didn't have that, and it just bothered me again. Like they did the same thing. He just didn't get time, and it was weird because he has so many freaking powers, and he just didn't get any time. So it was really weird. But still loved the fight. I was happy to see that Spider-Man got most of the attention because Spider-Man and Ant-Man really were the ones where it's like, here you guys are, fight scene, and then they're kind of gone after that. So I was like, all right, I'm glad that they got most of the attention. Spider-Man got the most attention. Once again, not because he's my favorite, and he's tied for favorite with Wolverine, to be totally honest, but because they're both fairly new, and Spider-Man being brand new to this MCU, I was glad that they put so much focus on him and how they're going to do the design of his character, the full, with him being full CG, and how they're going to do the webbing, and how all that is just Spider-Man fighting, but, dialogue and stuff like that, dialogue and visuals, how they're going to play with that. I was glad that got a lot of focus. And then Ant-Man, with him just being fairly new and not as well known for a lot of people outside of, the movies, I was glad that the two of them got so much focus, because everyone else had a million fights already. It was like a bunch of people already had fights beforehand. Obviously Cap and Iron Man, as well as Bucky and Falcon, all four of them guaranteed to have had a bunch of fights beforehand, and after that they definitely did. So they already had that. Black Panther already had his stuff. Scarlet Witch, she had like the one scene with Vision, but she also had like the opening fight scene as well. And Black Widow, same thing. Hawkeye we've seen from several other films, so it's slightly different with him. But everyone we've seen fight a billion times already. 2 Avengers movies, plus I think Black Widow, we've seen her fight in a billion different things because she showed up in Iron Man 2. So we've seen her fight a million different times. We've seen Cap fight Iron Man. Black Panther had a bunch of fight scenes, which he still got his time. But they're fairly new. Spider-Man and Ant-Man, and they got their time in this fight, and it was great. And they, the Giant Man surprise was just great, because I just didn't think they were going to do it so soon. But I'm really happy they did, because it was like the greatest surprise ever. I was like, I know he's going to do it someday, but them just doing it like, and I guess because he's not going to have his own second film, I don't believe. So I guess it makes sense to just do it now, instead of saving it for like 5 more years or whatever until the next Infinity Wars and stuff like that, because he's not going to be in the next Thor movie and stuff like that. So I guess it makes sense to have him go Giant Man now, and I was very happy that they did, because it was a great scene. Rhodey getting knocked out, I was glad he didn't die, because that was one of the things, because he was in the suit, and I'm like, okay, him free falling, he could easily die from this, but he does get paralyzed. So that was really sad. That really sucked, but at least he survived, because I was like, maybe if they won't kill Cap or Iron Man, they could kill someone else, and maybe it would end up being Rhodey. But I was glad he didn't die, and so we go through. We have Zemo, who I thought was a great villain, smart villain and stuff like that. very curious when he first came up because I didn't know he was in the movie. I'm like, is he gonna have his mask? Like I was just so curious. As soon as he said his name, I was like, okay, great villain because I know about him a bit from the comics and from like the old Avengers cartoon, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. So I'm like, I know he's a pretty badass character, but he wears like a full on purple outfit and it's got like fur on it and stuff like that. I'm like, I just don't know. And plus the way it gets stuck on him with the glue and all that stuff, I was just like, how's that gonna play out? What are they gonna do with that? So they full on ignore that, no reference or anything like that, unless I missed a reference. But none of that. He's just a smart, calculating villain who wants revenge, and he wants these people to tear themselves up from within so that he can have revenge for his family. He had a really devastating story, which I like the way they played it because when he was on the phone the first time, it's like, oh, son's going to sleep and stuff. It's like, okay, so he's being a villain and he's trying to be a family man and stuff. And then we have the message play over, it's like, oh, his family's dead. And, the scene with him and Black Panther, the Prince T'Challa, I believe is his name. Because they don't actually say his last name in this. They always say Your Highness, but they don't actually say his name in the movie, which I thought was interesting. They always say Your Highness, or I don't think they even say Black Panther. I don't think anyone says Black Panther now that I think about it. They just say Your Highness all the time. But Prince T'Challa and him and they're talking, they just have that scene. He has the gun and he's gonna kill himself. I thought that was actually a pretty good scene. And he's like, I almost killed the wrong guy because of you, because I was driven by revenge. Right now, they're nearly killing each other because you've put Tony in this position where he's now driven by revenge against technically the wrong person. And he's like, I can't let myself be driven by that anymore. And that was a really great scene. I really love that scene. But great ending to the villain, and he's still there, so if they want to, they could definitely go the comic book route a little later on, I guess. I don't know, super adhesive if they want to. But I thought it was cool. I was like, alright, it's nice that he's, kind of been officially introduced because he is such a big villain. Just, they did him in such a different way because of the... Well, he normally does do a mental game, but he has a lot more physical stuff compared to the movie. But I like the way they did him, and, not doing the costume makes a lot of sense. If you haven't seen the costume, just look up Baron Zemo from the comics, and you'll see why it would just be crazy if they did it. But sometimes it just doesn't fit. Like some costumes just don't work in live action, and that costume, honestly, it barely works in cartoons. When I see it, it's like that, that's what they made, but it looks effing weird. It looks like he's wearing a beanie over his whole face. That's what it really looks like because it has the lines in it and stuff. It's like he put on a hat, he put on a beanie. It's like, I want this over my whole face, and I'm not gonna cut holes in it either, because I think it might have eye holes, but it doesn't have a spot for his mouth. His mouth just moves underneath it. But either way, I like the way they did the villain. Ending fight was definitely really great. One thing that was interesting, they talked about all the other Winter Soldiers. They totally killed them off. I was like, man, this is gonna be a crazy final fight or something. They're gonna fight all these Winter Soldiers and kill them off, and then they're gonna have, Cap and Bucky versus Iron Man. And that didn't happen. They had this whole thing, and it was very interesting. Them going through the whole thing, and it's like he turns out, he's still the villain because it's like he wanted them to kill each other. But when it first happened and he killed all the other soldiers, I was like, wait a minute, is he not? But like, if he's not a villain, why did he do all this stuff just to kill them? And then it's like, no, I actually did want to kill. I wanted the Avengers to all kill each other. So it's like, okay, he was still a villain, but they, totally wiped out all the other Winter Soldiers, and I was like, man, that would have been so cool if they did that. Like something just crazy, like that would be a task, to go up against. And I guess if they really did go up against them, it would be kind of difficult to imagine them actually winning against 8 of them. When you have basically 2 people with enhanced strength, not exactly super strength, and then you have Iron Man with kind of the same thing, enhanced strength, but he can fly and do the light beams. So I guess it wouldn't have made sense for them to survive that fight, because they just wouldn't have with all those people coming at them. But it was a little disappointing. I was like, oh man, it could have, even if it was just one of them and he was like insanely tough to fight. Because even when they did the flashback, it seemed like Bucky couldn't really take on that one guy. So it's like, okay, if they did at least one of them, and then maybe they took him down and were able to stop the process or whatever, that would make sense, and it would still be another cool action scene before they got to the final fight between the 3 of them. But, you know, they killed them all off, and I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. But it was still really cool. Then the ending fight scene was pretty crazy, and I was super freaked out. And I have to ask my girlfriend this, if she thought one of them might die. But having known the comic book story, I was like, I don't know if they're gonna kill Captain America or not. Plus, Chris Evans' contract is up, so that was like that just like quadrupled the threat. Like they might actually do that in this movie. So when they got to the end scene, I was freaking out like crazy. And they had the scene with Bucky. I was like, they could switch up whatever they want because they could do it where Tony gets killed instead of Captain America. So I was like, I just don't know how it's gonna play out. But then Tony like blows Bucky's arm off, so he's down. And then it's the two of them, and it's just a crazy fight. And I'm like, I just don't know. I thought, especially when Cap was about to do the shield, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's not going to kill Tony, but Tony might think he's about to. And I thought he would do the Unibeam again, and it would end up killing Captain America. But they don't do that, but I was freaking out that whole time. It just kept ramping up. Like, I think one of them might actually die. I think they might kill Captain America. But I was glad they didn't. I feel like they didn't really need to. Um, Whether contract's up or not, you know, it didn't really matter. But I was glad they both survived. It was fine. And also it kind of leads into them possibly doing the Dark Avengers, or like the Secret Avengers. I can't remember the specific name. There are so many different versions. It's either Dark or Secret Avengers. But when they did the Civil War thing and Cap had his own secret team, they could actually do that now because they have him go break everyone else out. And I'm like, they could do that if they want to. They could do Secret Avengers and have that maybe in the background of some of the other movies, or maybe they show up and we find out like the team is actually expanded outside of the couple of people he rescued at the end of the movie. So I would love that, but overall, a fantastic freaking movie. Hilarious, great action, great story. Once again, Russo brothers did a great job with Captain America, but I would definitely love to know what you guys thought about the movie, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, everything you guys thought about it, what you think they might lead into based on the way the movie ended, theories, everything like that. And of course, thank you guys for watching.